Welcome to Views from the 22 presented by The Scene. This is the 32 team breakdown, pretty much division by division. We're going to go ahead, man. We're just going to break down some football, get you guys prepared for the upcoming 2020 season. I am Germ So True alongside Mo Schefter and Vic Jr. Usual cast, usual suspects. And let's get this thing going, y'all. So the first team we're going to discuss today is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay? Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are in a situation this year where they get their quarterback back. And I say quarterback back. And that means Big Ben Roethlisberger shall be back up under center. And it should be very interesting to see what happens this year. Some of the big additions that they've had, the major guys, they re-signed Bud Dupree after he had a very, very strong season. They added Eric Ebron, and they also added Chris Wormley coming back from the Baltimore Ravens. I think this should be interesting with those two signings and adding back Bud Dupree to one of the best defensive units that we've seen. The losses were really Javen Hargreaves, Artie Burns, and Mark Barron. Those are not really bad losses, considering the fact that they just recently drafted my guy Devin Bush from the University of Michigan, and he has been an outstanding addition. He's given them speed from the interior and those type of things. So I look forward to that. And this year, they didn't have a first-round pick this year. They traded it for Minkah Fitzpatrick, the guy who really took that defense to another level. But some of their key notable draft pickups where they drafted a kid named Chase Claypool, a wide receiver, tight end prospect from Notre Dame, big physical guy, good straight end speed and those things. Defensive edge guy, Alex Highsmith from the University of Charlotte. He's a guy who can help if Bud Dupree happens to fizzle out. That could be the insurance policy. Very, very intriguing player. And also they drafted running back Anthony McFarland from the University of Maryland. He should be an interesting piece to this team as they figure out the backfield. Look, offensively, they still have one of the better quarterbacks in the AFC. As long as he shows up at least 75%, they're going to win at least 75% of their games because Ben is still one of the most intellectual quarterbacks in football. I look forward to seeing how that offense comes together now that they've had all of these new pieces solidify themselves in the offense. Let's see what happens there. Defensively, we think this may be one of the top 3 units in the league this year. And I think from a talent standpoint, from each position, they're good. They got Terrell Edmonds, who will be the starting strong safety, who gives them a lot more range and ability than Sean Davis did at the strong safety position. He'll be able to cover some tight ends and those type of things as well. And Minkah Fitzpatrick, as I said, I think that's the catalyst for their success on that back end. Joe Hayden has revived his career. Pittsburgh this year, moving forward, I think this is an up year for Pittsburgh. Give me 11-5 for Pittsburgh and a division win. And that's my current analysis for those guys. So now I'm going to swing it over there to the ugly Puerto Rican dude down below me, Mr. Victor Santana. And he has the
Browns.
Well, I had a couple questions for you, though, Jerm. Real quick, Chase Claypool. Any word if they're gonna move him to tight end? Have you heard anything about that?
No word if they move him to tight end. They did, like I said, they signed Ebron, and on top of signing Ebron, they still have another tight end that they had last year. His name slips from me right now at this moment. But
Vance McDonald.
Vance McDonald.
Right, and Chase Claypool is not going to be a tight end. He will be a receiver for them.
I mean, because there's been some good reviews from him coming out of camp.
Oh yeah,
that's a good pickup.
Oh yeah, he's
physical target for Big Ben to throw to, and we know Big Ben. He can get that deep ball going. So go ahead, man. Go to the Brownies.
So the Browns, they had a very interesting draft. I think it was one of their better drafts in a few years in terms of the depth that they were able to get. First round pick, very big pick, Jedrick Willis, tackle out of Alabama. This is a kid that played right tackle for Alabama. He is now going to switch over to the left side. That's going to be interesting because, again, it's just 2 different angles and stuff like that. I feel like he's more of a technician, probably the best technical blocker coming out of this draft. But we're going to see how much of an athlete he's going to be at the NFL level at the left tackle position. Again, very technically gifted, probably not the most athletic that was available in this draft, especially in terms of the athletic requirements needed to play the left tackle in the NFL when it comes to length and speed and quickness. But again, very technical player. I'm excited to see how that plays out because he's going to be a very important piece there. They did sign Jack Conklin to play the right tackle. So now you got two very solid tackles playing on both sides. Baker should have a little bit more time to at least get into his 5-step drop, because there was a lot of times last year watching the film before he got to his 5th drop, there was already people putting pressure on him from behind, from the front. So that's going to be at least give him a couple more seconds of protection there. Their 2nd-round pick, unfortunately, Grant Delpit, out for the season already. This was one of Mo's favorite safeties coming out in this draft. Unfortunately, he tore his Achilles. That's a big loss for them right there. But they got depth this year. They weren't playing when it comes to the safety and the secondary. They got Andrew Sandejo from the Vikings. They got Carl Joseph from the Raiders. They literally just drafted just traded for a couple hours ago Ronnie Harrison from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are just dumping players right now. But again, they got depth in the secondary. They still got Derek Ward and Greedy Williams playing the corner. So the Browns, again, I'm with the philosophy. As much as pieces as you can add as much talent you can add at a position, just let them fight for the starts and stuff like that. So the secondary should be interesting for the Browns. I expect them to be better and let the pass rush, do what they do. And then to me, the important losses were Kirksey and Schobert, simply because of the guys that are taking over for them. They got Sione Tataki, I guess is how you pronounce his name. He is now playing the middle linebacker spot where Kirksey was playing. Jerm did bring up a good point. Kirksey was always injured. But to me, he was a solid player when he was playing. So that linebacker position is going to be very interesting. You got Mac Wilson, their 2nd-round pick from last year, who will play the will linebacker. If they're able to keep that kid off the, off any blockers and stuff like that, he can make a lot of plays. So the Browns, Baker Mayfield is one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league, man. So I like them. I think I see a 10-6 season. I see them pushing the Steelers for first place in that division.
You said 10 wins?
10 wins from the Browns, bro.
For Cleveland?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. I ain't gonna say nothing. Look, here's the thing, right? We talked about Pittsburgh and we talked about Cleveland. We're gonna get to Cincinnati at the end, but just moving on to Baltimore real quick. Certainly those two teams, Cleveland and Pittsburgh, and even Cincy, are now going to match up better.
Yes.
With Baltimore. I think for Baltimore, they've had one of the more interesting off seasons of any of the football teams. They lost their biggest losses, in my opinion. First, they lost Michael Pierce. He went to Minnesota. I think that's a huge anchor from the inside that's now gone. Even though they added Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe, I just think Michael Pierce is one of those guys that's going to be greatly missed. And obviously, Derek and Calais are much older players at this point in their careers, so we don't know exactly what we're going to get out of them. They also lost Patrick Nwusa, their linebacker. He went to the Jets. Now, they did draft 2 linebackers. Those are really the only 2 draft picks worth talking about in the early rounds. They took Patrick Queen and Malik Harrison, linebackers out of LSU and Ohio State, respectively. So they're going to have 2 rookie inside linebackers in the middle there, quarterback in that defense. It's good long-term. I don't know how much good it's going to serve them in the 2020 season. And then their biggest loss, well, we got 2 more big losses. The first one came on defense with Earl Thomas. You could say what you want. He wasn't a locker room fit. He wasn't there, whatever. It didn't work out. They paid him a lot of money. And there's no doubt this is one of the issues with signing guys to big money in free agency. But I'm not going to put the blame on Earl necessarily. that it didn't work out. We studied this Ravens defense. We saw throughout the season, even though they played pretty well, we saw throughout the season that they had some communication issues. And I don't think losing Earl Thomas is going to help a team communicate better. That's just me. We're not sure if that secondary can translate year to year to play with consistent high-level performance in man coverage, with Jimmy Smith being older, with Marcus Peters being inconsistent. How much can you really rely on Marlon Humphrey to be that guy for 16 games? I just don't know. And then their biggest loss, by far, one of the biggest losses any team suffered in the offseason. Shout out to the homie. He's no longer got beef, but he does have a Lombardi now. He doesn't need the beef anymore. That's Marshall Yanda, the guard. He was the anchor, the leader, the spirit of everything involved in that offense over the better part of 10 years, but especially last year when all they wanted to do was just run the football and just drive into people's chest. Now, they did draft Ben Bredesen later in the later rounds out of Michigan. He is one of my favorite guys coming out this year. I think long-term, he's going to be a very polished, very solid starter in this league. But same way, in the 2020 season, I just don't know how much he's going to serve their purpose. I think when you look at Baltimore, the division is much improved. They're certainly not going to beat Pittsburgh and Cincinnati 4 times this year. I don't see that happening at all. We talked about that defense. They got some questions. They're older in some spots, and then they got 2 rookies in the middle. I don't know how much Lamar is going to take that leap to being a pocket passer in his second year as a full starter. I'm not too convinced he's going to make the necessary leap that he needs to make to be efficient from the pocket. And I think all those things combined, I'm gonna put the Ravens at a 9-7 and finishing 3rd in their division behind Pittsburgh and Cincy.
All right, and now we're going to break down the Cincinnati Bengals as a cast and as a group. So first, we'll go to the scouting department. Vic, who are the big additions in the draft?
I mean, the biggest addition of this draft, I mean, can't get past it. Joe Burrow, quarterback, automatically just makes the quarterback position better. I think that's a mix of how good he is and how good he can be, and a mix of how bad Andy Dalton really was. I see Joe Burrow. I mean, I'd be surprised if Joe Burrow was in the bottom half of the league in terms of quarterback play. I think when all the grades and everything comes out, film study and everything, I think he'll be one of the top 15, if not top 12 quarterbacks available. He's got an improved offensive line. Hopefully they stay healthy. And, I mean, the receiving core is going to be fun to watch. You got A.J. Green. You got
Tyler
Boyd. You still got John Ross. And you also got one of my favorite receivers in this class, second-round pick T. Higgins, big body player. He has been injured in camp. There hasn't been a lot of reviews as to how he has progressed throughout camp and stuff like that. But it's going to be interesting to see if he can develop and towards the end of the season provide them with another big target. Of course, I'm pretty sure, Jerm, you want to talk about Joe Mixon. But again, the offensive line, to me, is going to be the important part of what happens with the Bengals this season.
All right, now let's go to we'll come to the additions for the Cincinnati Bengals this year. I like the addition of Mike Daniels and DJ Reader on the interior to go along with Geno Atkins. They still got Carl Lawson. They still have a very, very good pass rushers with them picking up Sam Hubbard and also
Dunlap.
Carlos Dunlap. I don't know why I always forget Dunlap's name. Every time. But he's an outstanding player as well.
Definitely.
And then I think by adding Von Bell in the secondary with Jesse Bates, I think that is a very, very underrated safety duo we could see in the NFL this year. Jesse showed us he can play the single high role and he can play it at a high level. And Von has showed us he can do an excellent, stellar job covering tight ends. He did that in his division in the NFC South. And in the AFC North, it's going to be even more important with Austin Hopper and Eric Ebron and Vance McDonald and all of those guys. And then it's even headway out of Cleveland that Harrison Bryant, Harrison Bryant is his name.
The
From
tight end,
FAU.
right? Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He's been balling. So Cleveland, and those two teams, Cleveland and Pittsburgh for sure. And then we also have to add the fact that Baltimore still does have Mark Andrews, and they have a plethora of tight ends that they use in general. So Von Bell is a very underrated pickup for that defense in general. So the subtractions for you, Mr. Sheffer. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I want to be careful here. Before the show, I said trash. I don't want to use trash. The Bengals got rid of a lot of roster hoarders. We don't call them hoarders. Just guys who were on the roster that didn't really need to be on the roster, that you could easily upgrade, that was just taking up salary space, taking up team space. They got rid of a lot of guys, most notably, obviously, Andy Dalton. They upgraded that. Tyler Eifert, he went to the Jaguars. Listen, we know what he is when he's healthy, but he hasn't been healthy since 2014, and that's not even an exaggeration. They got rid of also their two corners, Darquise Dennard and Drake Kirkpatrick, to the Falcons and Cardinals now. Same thing. Those are players that they invested high in, just didn't quite pan out to what they wanted them to be. They lost Andrew Billings, but like we said, they more than upgraded, because Andrew Billings is not a player who can play on every down. Cordy Glenn is gone, but they also, with the draft picks, they added some guys. So I think the Bengals may be one of the most improved teams in the NFL. They're my sleeper team. If I had to bet right now on a team in the AFC to go from last to first, it will be Cincinnati. I know, Jerm, you picked Pittsburgh to win that division. I'm not going to disagree with you, but I do think Cincinnati will make the playoffs this year, led by rookie Joe Burrow, led by now paid Joe Mixon, and hopefully a revived A.J. Green. I expect Cincinnati to make a playoff push this year.
So then we could put the Ravens in the bottom of the division then.
Third. They're finishing third. In my opinion, they're finishing third. I don't expect much out of Cleveland. I think it's going to be another year of just trying to figure out what the hell they want to do. And I'm not expecting much out of Cleveland, but I do think
I'll get in there real quick, and then I'll pass it to Vic. Cincinnati, to me, is the best roster top to bottom in the AFC North. I think besides having a couple issues with some tackles, I think the interior part of that line, if they gel, they'll probably be one of the better interiors in football. They got a lot of young draft capital there that they just haven't tapped into. Jonah Williams is listed as the left tackle. I want to see if he plays left tackle. But if worst case scenario, you got yourself a Pro Bowl left guard.
Yes.
That's the worst case scenario. So I think that's another thing. Defensively, they have all of the pieces. You don't have to have great corners to have a great secondary. If you have two good safeties who communicate well and understand each other, and you get a good signal caller in the middle of that defense, guess what you can do? Many things. I mean, we see this every year. You don't have to have the greatest. Pittsburgh doesn't have the greatest combination of cornerbacks. They have some veteran guys who play pretty well. So moving forward, I'll just say it very simply. I don't disagree with you, Mo. I think Cincinnati has a excellent chance. They get the quarterback. If they protect the quarterback and they get good play from the quarterback, they cover the three essential things to football. And those things will make you automatically an 8-8 football team at worst, and potentially even better. The only thing we got to factor in is attrition. So for me, I'll say 10-6 is a fair thing for the Bengals. Only thing we'll say is potentially we'll see, but I'll say 10-6 is a starting point, and 8-8 is the lowest I think they could go. And I'll let Vic get in.
So if the Browns are trying to find themselves, what makes us think the Bengals won't, or will, whichever way?
I'll say it like this, and I'll start, and I'll let Mo go. I'm going to be honest. I think Joe Burrow's a better quarterback as a prospect than Baker Mayfield, number one. Number two, I think Joe Burrow has the capability to potentially be an all-pro quarterback within his first 5 seasons. And I think they're going to have a chance potentially to compete for a Super Bowl as long as they keep this team together. They attack the quarterback at a high level with the pass rushers that they have. And then you add Mike Daniels to that mix. Mike Daniels is one of my favorite defensive linemen in football. I think he's he's a hell of a player. And then we got Akeem Davis-Gaither, who I told you guys I really like that player. Put the battery in his back, the battery in that helmet. You say, hey, you don't leave the field, and you say, hey, Autobots, we're in pursuit for 3 downs, and we're going to get you off the field. Cincinnati has played Baltimore and all of these teams extremely tough with no quarterback or with little quarterback help. So that's why I believe in Cincinnati personally. I just think they have more continuity on the defensive side of the football, more continuity on the offensive side of the football, and they get one of the best receivers of football back this season in Mr. A.J. Green.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I think I'm gonna give 2 reasons, and I'm gonna keep it real short. Number 1, Joe Burrow. Number 2, the depth of that defensive line. I think if you look at the NFL over the last 5-6 years, I mean, you could certainly go back even further. Any team that has had this quality of depth and this quality of players with this much depth on the defensive line, they've won some games, they've made some noises, and they've made some runs. Look at the 2017 World Champions in the Philadelphia Eagles. When they lost Carson Wentz, it was that defensive line. It was the depth of that defensive line that ultimately won them a Super Bowl. And I think, I'm not saying they're going to win a Super Bowl this year, but Joe Burrow and that quality of depth on that defensive line, they're going to win some football games off those 2 reasons alone.
I'm with that. And real quick, I didn't even name Geno Atkins.
Listen, as much as I love Fletcher Cox, as much as I love Aaron Donald, as much as I love Linval Joseph, Geno Atkins is my favorite interior defensive lineman.
He's definitely a top 5-3 technique, and that's why, with the addition of Daniels, with the addition of the other name that you guys
DJ Readers.
DJ Reader.
Now you got somebody. Now you got those guys that can take more one technique snaps, and just give him that space that he has 1-on-1 with the guards, to pass rush with it from the 3 technique. But to me, with the addition of Ken Wisenhunt, that's his name, right? That went from the Vikings to coach the Browns.
You mean Kevin Stefanski?
Stefanski. Wow.
Yeah.
Stefanski. I think that the way he would constructed that offense in Minnesota, he's going to bring a new little offense, a little bit of change to the Browns. It's going to help Nick Chubb, and now they have better blocking. You got Nick Chubb, you got Kareem Hunt, you got a lot of talent on that offense as well. And Odell Beckham, we talked about it, but I feel like with Baker and Jarvis Landry, the 3 tight ends that they got now, this is a talented offense.
I'm just gonna say one thing.
Go ahead.
One thing. All that's great, Vic. I'm with you. But Baker Mayfield's not Kirk Cousins. Go ahead, Mo.
Woo! Listen, here's the thing you gotta keep. Well, it's true. Here's the thing. The thing you gotta remember, Vic. The thing you gotta remember about Kevin Stefanski. That offense from Minnesota was running the ball not because of him, because of Gary Kubiak and Mike Zimmer constantly being in his headset saying, "Run the dang ball, Kirk." All right. Shout out to Sandra Bullock. I don't know if you know that or not, but the reason they ran the ball last year as much as they did finally was because of Gary Kubiak and not Stefanski. So there's no Gary Kubiak in Cleveland. There's no Mike Zimmer above him telling him what to do. He's now calling the shots. And listen, his ego might just get the best of him, and he might throw the ball 50 times, and Baker end up with 35 interceptions this year.
I'm believing in my guy Baker. I think he takes a step forward again. I mean, he went from having an 0-16 team to going 8 wins. Well, no, sorry, 7 wins was it? Rookie year. Mm-hmm. So to me, he takes a step forward. We'll see though. We'll see. I like.
And don't get me. It's not about Baker. This like to me, this is not about Baker. I like Baker. I think Baker's still got room to improve. I think his story is still being written, but it's still Cleveland. And I think there needs to be a culture cleanse from the Browns. And I don't think that's taken place yet. And I think you did good by adding Juice Landry, but you kind of sucked the juice when you added Odell.
Well, all I can say is, for the most part, this is going to be an intriguing division. This may compete for the best division in football.
Oh, no doubt.
If it's not number 1, it's going to be number 2, and it's going to be maybe 1 or 2 divisions.
I'll be fine seeing the Ravens and in the last place on that division.
At the end of the day, this is going to, like I said, one of the best divisions in football. Top to bottom, each team has things that they can do very well. And a lot of this is strength on strength. So it's going to be who executes the best. Execution will win this division. That's why I got Pittsburgh. I just think they execute the best. No disrespect to no other team. I won't say the Ravens can't win 10 games, but I think this is the Ravens' down year. I think this is the Ravens' down year out of the bunch as they get ready to have to pay Lamar Jackson. So with that being said, don't forget to check out The Scene, TheScen, on YouTube, on Facebook, website, and everything else coming soon. Make sure you guys remember that we are always going to bring you guys some very fire content. Don't be scared to click the links, like everything, share it, whatever it is that you're going to do. The Scene is here. Views from the 22. Germ So True, Vic Jr., Mo Schefter. We'll see you next time.